we've got a busy day ahead, and let me go ahead and share the screen. Now, this is quite a moment to be in your third lecture in political science. Three lectures. We got a lot to do, and yet here's the thing: you are being presented with the biggest constitutional crisis in American history. Third lecture in since 1859 and 1860. This is history beyond history. It's a moment of tremendous thoughtfulness, let's put it that way. And we're going to have a study guide, and I won't put the study guide out till tomorrow after the lectures tomorrow, because a lot can happen in a day. So I'll do an update. So look for a little update where the lectures are on the website, so you can answer the study guide, because so many things could happen in the next 24 hours and are scheduled to happen that we need to account for in that study guide. So there will be a chance for you to express your opinion on all these issues. And your opinion matters, and every opinion matters regardless of what that opinion is. If you can back up your opinion with some facts, some information, and you have an opinion that's different than somebody else's, that's what America's all about. We have different opinions. So when you write an opinion essay, feel free to express yourself. It'll remain totally confidential. The thing about it is that this is your chance to write and express yourself. If we were there in person, we'd be having some debates right now on some of the serious issues here. And because of COVID, we can't do that. And we also can't do it because we only have 32 lectures as opposed to 85. So we can't take 3 or 4 days out to debate some of the key issues. So I'm going to put the key issues in the study guide. Here's the other thing. This is better, because when we do a class debate, class discussion, 3 or 4 students dominate the whole thing. And the rest of the students are sitting back going, oh my goodness, can I get a word in edgewise? The truth is the debates are never a chance for everyone to express themselves. So by you being able to do that in writing, everyone gets a chance to express themselves, and all of your opinions will be taken seriously, and all of them will be honored and respected under the First Amendment. So this is a better way, I think, to share. I encourage you to share conversations with your family, share your essays with your family, what you're writing, talk it over with family and friends. And get the debate going and the discussion and dialogue going on these really very serious issues. Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to give you a very quick introduction that normally we would have done over the period of the next few weeks. But basically, you have a state constitutional test, and it's 50 questions that come from the citizenship and immigration naturalization test, the test immigrants take when they to get their citizenship. My wife had to take this test. She's English, and she passed it, of course. But the thing is, this is also a state law. To graduate from high school, you have to pass this test. And we've already, in the last lecture and this lecture, we'll have serious questions from the Constitution that will apply to this test. So make sure you look those up. You'll see those. It'll have a little EX for exam by those questions, and they're 20% of your grade. But also you have to pass this test, these questions. You have to get these questions right in order to pass the state test, and you will. I didn't have anybody last semester that finished their study guides that did that. What we're looking at right now is the resolution from the House of Representatives that is going to be voted on. I'm looking at the thing today. The House is now coming into session. They're doing it this hour. They're starting the process. They're going to vote articles of impeachment against the President of the United States for incitement of the riot that led to the trashing of the Capitol and the endangerment of lives. Some of these people were coming after Mike Pence. They were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, where's Mike Pence?" His family was there to watch this little ceremony where we count the electoral votes, we make it official. They had to be whisked to safety. And it was, by the way, a matter of minutes before that group actually got into the Senate. And this is the form of a law or resolution. And the key indictment against the president comes starting with line 18. And they number each line, and it goes through their authority under the 12th Amendment of the Constitution to do this, under the Constitution itself. And then they go ahead and they list the actions of the president. We have to fall within a spectrum called high crimes and misdemeanors. And trust me, this is high crimes and misdemeanors are what we're talking about here. These are things that are very serious. Now, why? How did they come about? It started when our country was founded, when we had a French thinker named Montesquieu, who proposed in France about 100 years before the American Revolution, not quite that many, that the king, Louis XVI, who believed the state was him, he was the state, he had all power and authority. And the problem with the monarch is he could just do whatever he wanted and nobody could stop him. So Montesquieu proposed separating the powers between three branches of government, that the powers of the king were so absolute, he could control everything, that we should take away from the king the power to make laws and the power to judge those laws, and leave the king only in charge of executing the law and following the will of duly elected legislators. This system was enshrined in our Constitution by Madison, creating our separation of powers. The separation of powers is a fairly simple concept. We have one group that makes the laws, Article 1, and they're the most important branch, the government. The most important branch, Article 1, is the Congress, is the House and the Senate. It's not the executive branch. President Trump once said, Article 2 gives me all the power to do whatever I want. No, it doesn't. In fact, quite the opposite. Article 2 sets up the presidency and the administration of government. That's all, to carry out the will of Congress. Now, who gives Congress the power? The people. The people elect Congress. They pass the laws that we should all follow, the rule of law. And in this case, they're saying the president didn't do that. Also, we separate the court system. Now, you know how important that was. In this last election, we had 60 or more court cases to try to invalidate the election. They couldn't find any evidence in the court system because the court is separate and judges are appointed for life and they can't be intimidated by a ruthless king. So what we had is separation of powers holding, but we had one branch of government. We had, these three, you can see that it all comes from the people. One branch of government led by the president and the cabinet. And you have to know what this cabinet is. The cabinet are the top officials picked by the president, but approved by the Senate to run the different parts of government. There's like 28 of them. The cabinet could become very important today, because what the vote is today is not actually on those impeachment articles. That comes tomorrow, but on a resolution to demand that the vice president of the United States meet with the cabinet, and under the 25th Amendment, remove the president. And they're giving Mike Pence, the vice president, 24 hours to meet with the cabinet to remove the president from his position today, or tomorrow they will vote articles of impeachment. So the president really is left with this. He can resign now like Nixon did, number one. Number two, he can be removed by the vice president and a majority of the cabinet members under the 25th Amendment, or he can be removed by impeachment by the Congress. These are the checks and balances we put on the presidency, so we don't have a monarch or a king or an all-powerful dictator demanding, and taking charge of everything that's going on. Okay, now the thing is, the leaders of the House and the Senate, it's really important you know who these people are. This is Mitch McConnell. He is in charge until noon at the 20th of this month, and he's a Republican, member of the GOP, or Grand Old Party. This is Chuck Schumer, who will take the leadership role over the Senate. And you heard him speak. Both of these guys speak in the last lecture. He will take over the Senate on the 20th at noon. This is the most powerful person in all of Congress. She runs the House of Representatives. Her title under the Constitution, the official title, is Speaker of the House. We, of course, in Utah, we have congressmen and senators who represent us there. We have 4 members in the House and we have 2 members of the Senate, both, I think, distinguishing themselves very well right now. And they're going to get a chance to vote. whether or not they think the vice president should impose the 25th Amendment. All the members of the House are going on record today. Do you support removing the president or not? And that vote is going to be consequential down the line. Those that vote to support the president, there's going to be a consequence for that. Those that vote to remove the president, well, there'll be consequences for that. Every vote has a consequence. You have to live with that vote the rest of your life. So this is going to be one of the most stunning votes in American history today. And I'm looking up here, I've got this, they've started the meeting, okay? Now, these things tend to go along, so we'll have a little update tomorrow, and that's what I need you to look at. It'll just be marked update, and this is for you in this class, as to what happened in this vote. Very consequential moment in American history. Now, if it doesn't pass, or if Mike Pence, the vice president, doesn't remove President Trump under the 25th Amendment, then the next day they will vote on these articles of impeachment right here. Now, we'll have to explain impeachment. This is really what's happened here. The president of the United States has tried to take a chainsaw and cut off the judicial and legislative branch. He thinks because he appointed all these judges that they're suddenly going to vote for him and give him, all the credibility in these court cases. They didn't do that. The judges he appointed are what we call conservative judges. They believe in the Constitution. He didn't know that when he was given this list, and he started pulling names out of there and started passing them. But these guys truly believe in the Constitution. These conservative judges do. And they didn't support this illegal trying to overturn the election. And then literally we had a mob attack the legislative branch, the first branch, the most important branch of government, and literally put lives at risk to the point that 1 minute sooner, if that crowd got into the house 1 minute sooner, there could have been hostages taken. They were hunting for Nancy Pelosi. They were looking for her. That's all on video now. The tapes that have come out from the cell phones over this last week have been truly amazing. Our Constitution has a thing in it called federalism. I'm not going to go into detail on that now, but basically what it says is it leaves the elections to the states. And so these members of Congress who tried to overturn the elections of other states, people like Ted Cruz and Hawley and others, they were way out of line here. We don't want Utah's votes overturned by a legislator in Texas. It says here, Article 1, the times, places, and manner of holding elections shall be prescribed by each state by the legislature thereof. Pretty clear and simple. So what we've seen since the election is a president who has been perpetuating the big lie. I won in a landslide. We won. We're going to go take our country back. We're going to go and just take these electoral ballots and throw them out like the election never happened. This was the big lie. And he's perpetuated that big lie. Now let's go ahead and get an update on what's happened up until yesterday. And I think this clip does about as good a job as any of explaining what's happened and the serious consequences and how fast things are moving. Okay, you ready? Hang on to your seats because here we go.
This Sunday, assault on democracy. Egged on by President Trump.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Thousands of pro-Trump rioters storm into the Capitol building. Overwhelming security. Members of Congress cowering in the House gallery.
We were just told that there has been tear gas in the rotunda, and we're being instructed to each of us get gas masks.
5 people dead. The Speaker's office breached. Many others trashed. Seems more out of a dictatorship than a democracy. Now the aftermath. Democrats moving to impeach the president a second time.
I think the American people have seen enough, and they are ready for us to do the job of impeaching this man.
Cabinet secretaries and other officials resigning.
I can't stay here. Not after yesterday.
The president, permanently banned from Twitter, insisting he and his supporters will not go away. A democracy in crisis. My guest this morning, former Trump Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, the chairman of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, and Republican Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania. Joining me for insight and analysis are NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt, NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson, former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, and Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan. Welcome to Sunday and a special edition of Meet the Press.
From NBC News in Washington, the longest-running show in television history, this is a special edition of Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Good Sunday morning. It was almost exactly 4 years ago at his inauguration that Donald Trump stood at the U.S. Capitol and said, "This American carnage stops right here and stops right now." On Wednesday, that American carnage came to the Capitol, inspired by a president trying to deny his successor's inauguration. Make no mistake, what happened that day was an insurrection against the United States government by thousands of pro-Trump rioters who stormed and sacked the Capitol, aided by elected Republicans trying to overturn Joe Biden's victory with a big lie, and inspired by a president of the United States who urged that mob on. Then later that day, excused the violence with a lie, again, calling the election fraudulent. Since Wednesday, President Trump has been largely out of sight, muzzled by Twitter and Facebook. His only public appearance, a walk-it-back video scripted by someone else in which he told those same rioters they will pay if they broke the law. So what now? Democrats are preparing to impeach President Trump for a second time. Speaker Nancy Pelosi promising to move forward if Mr. Trump does not resign. There has been talk of removing the president through the 25th Amendment, but there does not appear to be enough support for that. And Mr. Trump is even said to be discussing trying to preemptively pardon himself. Or he could be talked into resignation early in order to receive a more legally sound pardon from a President Pence. Wednesday's madness was what happens when supporters take President Trump both seriously and literally. Still, this was as predictable as it was shocking. In fact, don't take my word for it. Take the word of Senator Marco Rubio, who said this in 2016 about supporting candidate Trump, something he has done since 2016. You mark my words, there will be prominent people in American politics who will spend years explaining to people how they fell into this. Days after he provoked a violent mob to storm the Capitol, a single article of impeachment is expected to be introduced on Monday, accusing President Trump of incitement of insurrection if he does not resign.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength. There's a gun! There's a gun! There's a gun!
This video shows the moment rioters reached the door of the Speaker's lobby, leading to the House chambers. Lawmakers hiding in fear. Capitol Police brandishing guns in an armed standoff.
We were just told that there has been tear gas in the rotunda, and we're being instructed to each of us get gas masks that are under our seats.
Dozens have now been charged after Wednesday's rampage, including Richard Barnett of Arkansas, photographed in Speaker Pelosi's office, Lonnie Kaufman of Alabama, whose vehicle allegedly contained 11 Molotov cocktails, a handgun, and an assault rifle. He was carrying 2 more guns. And Jacob Anthony Chansley, a.k.a. Jake and Jelly of Arizona, who confronted law enforcement carrying a spear. Protester Ashley Babbitt was fatally shot by a police officer, now on administrative leave. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick also died from injuries after pro-Trump rioters struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher, according to police.
This is an act of domestic terrorism. So this is what the FBI will be focused on 24/7.
The president on Wednesday telling the mob,
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you.
only taping a scripted about-face after pressure.
My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
Then reversing course again on Twitter, tweeting his supporters will have a giant voice long into the future They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly, saying he will not be going to Biden's inauguration. Hours later, Twitter permanently suspended his account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. Now Democrats are pushing to impeach him a second time.
He has done something so serious that there should be prosecution against him.
I think the American people have seen enough.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski calling on President Trump to step down. Quote, "I want him out. He has caused enough damage."
I will definitely consider whatever articles they might move, because as I've told you, I believe the president has disregarded his oath of office.
But Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is making it clear impeachment proceedings could not start until January 19th in the Senate, a day before Biden is sworn in.
I think it's a ridiculous discussion to have. You don't have the time for it to happen, even if there was a reason.
And joining me now is President Trump's...
All right, that gets us kind of up to pace. And so you see how quickly things have moved and how quickly things are going. Let's go ahead. And when I talk about a series of fast moving events, I mean that because I saw this happen with Nixon. I saw, this president went on and on and on. And all of a sudden, one event, tape comes out. He fires a bunch of people, try to hide the evidence, and public opinion changed quickly. And the environment changed quickly, and it was a very quick ending to a long story. And so here's the facts. The facts are, here at the Ellipse, the president had a rally. He called these people, asked them to come to DC at this moment. And after his and other speeches, and you should hear some of these other speeches, oh my goodness. They marched down Constitution Avenue here and Pennsylvania Avenue. They broke out from the Ellipse in two different directions, and they took and went down Pennsylvania Avenue and attacked the very heart of our system of government, of our country, of our freedoms, of our liberties, of our democracy and our republic, and threatened the lives of the top leadership of government. After the president, next in line of authority is the vice president. Then you have the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem, all that were in that building. Some of them only got out of the chambers where they were meeting and taken to a room down the hall within a minute or so before they were overrun. So this is the most serious event ever against our democracy since 1860. Public opinion is shifting quickly. And this is what we saw with Nixon. Nixon was very popular. I know that sounds hard to believe, but he was. Trump never got to 50% approval. These are his job approval numbers, right? And you can see that as well. ABC Ipsos poll released Sunday, a majority already, 56% say Trump should be removed from office, while 43% say he shouldn't. And as far as the job he's doing, look at these numbers go so fast. This was just before his speech, inciting the mob to march. Notice I didn't say to storm the building, but definitely to march down to Pennsylvania. He said, "I'll go with you. I'm going with you." So he sent the mob on its way. Very careful how I worded that. Did you see that? Because we've got to prove intent. What was his intent? That'll be the legal question. But look, this was just as of Sunday. And polls are lagging indicators. We'll talk about that concept later. In other words, it will take days before the full impact of this will be felt in the polls. But that was a big jump. Look at that steep line. Public opinion is changing, especially now that this coup attempt is no longer a bloodless coup attempt. It's a bloody coup attempt, as an officer was killed. His name was Brian Sicknick, who, by the way, was a Trump supporter, but he died defending our democracy. And he is a national hero, and flags all over the country went to half-mast for him almost immediately, except for the White House. The White House, it took 2 days before they finally lowered the flag to half-mast, and the president has not yet commented on the death of this unbelievably fine police officer. Now we have cell phones, right? People, smartphones. We get all that evidence is being collected, and we see pictures now. Here's somebody with these zip ties, which are used to hold hostages. When they arrest people, they use these zip ties nowadays, right? What's that about? This noose was put up, and through this chant, there was a chant of some of these people yelling, "Hang Pence, hang Pence, where is Pence?" Pence was livid because during the whole time, he and his family were being rescued by the Secret Service and being held in a secret, undisclosed location. President Trump never called him at all, hasn't talked to him at all. Pence is livid. He has been the most total supporter of Trump right up until now. But he wasn't going to overturn the Constitution. And now he becomes Trump's enemy. Here's these signs that appear. Stop the steal, off with their heads. What? This isn't France in the French Revolution. Here's the Electoral College votes. Luckily, some staffers smuggled them out. They took them with them, or this mob would have got all those votes. Now, we had backup copies, so it wouldn't have mattered. One day later, Pelosi calls for Pence to pull out the 25th Amendment, or she's going to impeach. She's following through on that. Today's the vote on that, which will put every single member of the House of Representatives on the record as to where they stand. And that is going to be very interesting. We have 4 members of the House in Utah. Where do they stand? I want to know, don't you? Then, if that Pence has 24 hours. Now, remember that the Congress is more powerful than the president. People don't know that about our Constitution because they represent the people directly in our local districts and in our states. How did Nancy Pelosi get to be Speaker of the House? She's elected by the majority party. So there's 220 Democrats that elected her. And she will go down in history. I know there's a lot of people that won't like this statement, but I'll say it. It's true. She will go down in history as probably the greatest speaker that the House has ever produced in our 232-year history. She's already in the top 3 before any of this. She's got power. Now, they tried to take her out. We'll show you evidence of that in a second. And then the resignations have continued. People are abandoning the Trump presidency that have worked in the White House and in that. There's been more. And then there's this. Ben Sasse did a radio interview. He's a Republican. And when I say Republican, often you hear GOP. GOP means Republican, Grand Old Party, same thing. So he was a supporter of Trump, voted for him, from what I understand. But in this interview, Ben Sasse said, it's a radio interview. I heard the interview. He said Friday that he heard from senior White House officials, plural, there's more than one, that President Trump was, quote, delighted to hear that his supporters were breaking into the Capitol building in a riot Wednesday that turned deadly. As this was unfolding on television, this is Sasse's direct quote here. This is primary source information, primary source document. This is evidence. As this was unfolding on television, Donald Trump was walking around the White House confused about why other people on his team weren't as excited as he was, as you had rioters pushing against Capitol Police trying to get into the building. Sasse told conservative talk show host Hugh Hewitt in an interview. That was happening. He was delighted. I've heard other people who know the president worked with him very well. His second chief of staff said something's happened in the last few months that's different. I don't know what he meant by that, but I do know that the speech that I posted that I was hopeful for was going to have you do a little essay on it. In fact, give your thoughts and opinions on it, where he advocated rule of law and the people that did this will be punished and all that kind of stuff, was heavily edited and scripted for him by his legal team to limit his legal liability. And he since has regretted doing it. So that's not going to make a very good essay because we already now have more evidence as to why that happened. It was heavily edited, as you could see. If you want to go back and watch it, you can. So I've come up with a different essay that will happen next week, where we'll compare Trump's inaugural speech to Biden's inaugural speech, and I'll give you more of a chance to give real opinion, really think about it and do something, because right now this speech is, I saw this with Nixon. Nixon came out and did these press conferences, and he fired key people like that would get everybody off his back, and he could go on as president, even though he was the ringleader. Saw this happen before. So that one, I don't know. And you heard parts of it, by the way, in that last little clip. But since then, Facebook, Twitter have banned him for life. They were trying to move to a different platform called Parler, but Google, Amazon, and that blocked it. They won't use Parler anymore. Is this a violation of freedom of speech? No. Why? Because these are private companies, and you can't tell private companies what they can put on their platform. That's their right to put whatever they feel should be out there. Now, there are plenty of pro-Trump news organizations and websites and whatever. So he can get his message out. It's not a violation of freedom of speech. You can't tell a company what to say. They have their rights to say what they want to say or to block what they want to block. They're private. They're not public. They're not run by the government where they have to, go by different rules. Stripe stopped credit card payments. This is a company that keeps track of credit card payments online to the Trump campaign website. So they can't fundraise off of this now. And then the PGA Golf Tour canceled the championship they were going to play on Trump properties at Bedminster, one of his golf resorts, because you didn't want to be connected with this. These are companies like Marriott Hotels. There's a whole list, by the way, of companies that are no longer giving to a lot of these people that were perpetuating the big lie, because these companies do not want to be associated with this insurrection. They don't want to be seen as supporting it. So support is withering around the country for this president. It's happening very fast. Now, here's the next thing. These are the definitions we gave you last time. I'm going to give you a few more, right? We already know about coup. We're a faction, right? Tries to take over a government through violent means. Insurrection, an active instance of revolting against an established government. That's what it is. Sedition. One of the questions will be, do you think it was sedition, what the president and his folks said at that rally before this crowd marched down to the Capitol? Be your thoughts, your opinion. And look, we'll have different opinions on this. And that's totally great that we have different opinions. I mean that. If you have a different opinion than mine, that's great. This class would be nothing if we didn't allow you to think for yourself and to come to your own conclusions. Kind of what it's all about, really. Now let's get to the next one. Terrorist. Fear, use fear and violence to push a political ideology. These are being called terrorists. Now we're going to add some more. Ready? These are key terms. And you see these pictures here of the violence. And the pictures, by the way, were worse than, I won't show you some of the worst ones. I just won't. They are so violent. And I know I have some students who have a sensitivity to violence, and this would disturb them greatly. In years past, we've had these students just, leave the room during some instances where they could be affected by this. But I can't be there to know who those students are that have this. This is a key issue, and I'm not going to take a chance of, giving people nightmares. So we'll stick with the static images. We showed you a few at the top in that clip, which were kind of edited. But boy, I'm telling you what, the images that came off the cell phones of people that were there, this was bad stuff. It was. Now, was there incitement? Did the president incite? This is what the articles of impeachment will be about tomorrow. And the act of provoking unlawful behavior or urging somebody to behave unlawfully, urging, goading, egging on. Another term you're going to hear, anarchy, a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority, lawlessness, or mobocracy, where the mob takes everything in control of their, and we have anarchy, a state of disorder. Egg someone on, you're going to hear that a lot. To incite a person to take a course of action, to encourage someone to do something, especially something unacceptable, criminal, or dangerous, usually carries a negative connotation. to egg somebody on, to get them to do something that they shouldn't do. Look, there were 3 groups of people at that rally. You ready? I want you paying strict attention to me right now. This is going to be the most important thing I'm going to say all day. There were 3 different groups. There were true people to the Constitution who were there to have a peaceful protest to express themselves. That would probably have been most of the crowd. And many of them walked away. Then there was another group that got swept up by the experience and followed the faction into there, and they are regret. Heard one guy, he went in there, he was a CEO of a marketing company, and he just got caught up in the moment, and then he goes, what did I do? And he goes back home. He actually turned himself into the FBI and apologized. He did on his porch to the news media. I can't believe that happened. Of course, he lost his job, by the way. No company wants to be associated with that. But he felt really bad that he just got caught up in the moment. And then there's the faction that actually did it, that was organized. And we know now who they were because of the almost 100 arrests. And it's all pointing to the same groups: Proud Boys, QAnon, KKK, groups like that. So this is the 3 groups. Do not ever think that the friends I have who are avid Trump supporters would ever have condoned this violence, ever, because they didn't. It's a faction, a small group within a group. I think I've got that definition up here. Yeah, a political faction is a group of individuals within a political party that share a common political purpose, but differs in some respect from the rest of the entity. So they're a piece of the whole. So you got the whole Republican Party, they're not involved in this. Not even those that were Trump supporters that showed up. It's smaller and smaller. It's a very small group, but big enough to do tremendous damage. They're doing a battering ram here. You should have seen what they did to the cops at this particular entrance. It was just unbelievable. And you're going to hear this term too: demagogue. Demagoguery, or a demagogue, is a political leader who seeks support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than using rational argument. And many are accusing President Trump of being a demagogue. But look, these are terms, they're just words that describe things. You're going to decide whether you think, it was sedition, whether it was demagoguery. But I'll hold one thing fast. For sure, it was a small faction. There were a lot of good people that went to that rally, and they're going, oh my goodness, I'm out of here. This is not what I believe in. So the Republican Party is torn. They've got a faction within, and they've got another group that wants to go back to normal. And it's going to be interesting to see what that political party does. These are not Trump support. These are not the Trump supporters I know who would never act violently. Now, let's talk about high crimes and misdemeanors. The Constitution says you can impeach a president for high crimes and misdemeanors. Was this a high crime and misdemeanor? Wouldn't that make a great question tomorrow on your study guide? Does this rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors? Your opinion, your thoughts, your ideas. And again, your opinion matters to me, whatever that happens to be. Even if it's wildly different than anything I would ever support or believe in, I respect your right to say and feel and put down on writing what you think is correct. Because we have to all go through this together. We have to think it through. I often tell my students every single year, I'm not always right. Are you kidding me? In fact, more often than not, I'm wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. I will literally respect you for that, as long as you make a sound case based in facts. And even if you don't, you make your best try, I'll respect it, because I respect the First Amendment and your right to freedom of speech and right to freedom of press. When you write something, that's press. And you have the right to express yourselves. And it's in a non-violent way, isn't it? You're doing it in writing. You're doing it through speech, not through violence. There's a difference. Here is the big difference. The Supreme Court way back did a ruling that, and they use this example, you can't, there are limits to speech. Incitement to violence is a limit to speech. That's why Twitter banned Trump. Incitement to violence is not freedom of speech. They went to say, you can't go into a crowded theater and yell fire when there isn't any, and everybody gets up and they run out and people get trampled and die because of your words. You can't incite violence. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That was the example they used. And so if you incite violence, that's not protected speech under the First Amendment. It's just not. It's conspiracy to commit violence and put people's lives at risk. And now that this is a bloody coup with a police officer actually being killed by this mob, that incitement can't be viewed in the same way. But you get to decide in your essay. Now, if it comes to impeachment, here's what happens. The House impeaches. What does impeach mean? Very important you know this. It means to accuse or to charge with high crimes. It's the accusation. They get the evidence, they put it together and accuse the person. That's what it means, impeach. Everybody thinks impeach means Trump's out. No. This is just the first step in a two-step process. They come up with the charges. They vote. If it passes the House with a majority vote, then at the time they want to, they give it to the Senate. The Senate, see this is what we call separation of powers. One side gets to make the charge. The other side decides whether it's true or not. And it takes a supermajority, 60 votes, to remove a president. It's not as simple as a 50-50 vote. They do a trial for removal. Now they can also, people are asking, well, it's so close. Why are you doing it now? Well, because does that mean that any president can do anything they want, any bad thing they want on the last day of their office and get away with it? No. So there's precedent to impeach, right? And then have the trial after the president leaves office. Because the other side of this is that they can bar that person from ever holding office again, running for office again. Like President Trump says he's going to run for president again in 4 years. Not if he gets removed from office by the Senate. And they could actually hold this off for 100 days. It also means the president won't get his $219,000 200 pension a month, or a year rather. And yeah, so there's consequences here. It also means that the president can then be prosecuted in court. So there's more to impeachment than we see. And when you see people say impeachment means he's out tomorrow. No, impeachment simply means the House has voted and they tell the Senate that you've got to decide whether he's guilty or not. And boy, we want to see that vote. We want to know who votes with the president, who votes against him, because these votes have consequences in both directions. So you are seeing the most dramatic moment in my 42-year career of teaching, and the most important moment. And in the middle of all this, the day after this, we had the highest number of deaths of to COVID so far. 4,000 people died on the 7th. So we've got some difficult days ahead, and we'll see how this comes out. Impeach, especially in the US, is a charge. The holder of a public office with misconduct, to charge or to accuse. Then it goes to trial in the Senate to decide whether or not they should be removed or not. Now, we have a two-party system. We've always have had. Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson gave us our two-party system. One organized the Federalist Party, the other Democratic Republican Party, and they fought for votes just like we do today. And it's been that way ever since. Today, we have the Democrats, which we give the color blue to for some reason. Actually, that happened because of color TV and an accident on a map one day. But we also now, red states, these are GOP states or Republican states. Trump is a Republican. Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat. Need to know that. This is one of those QAnon people, whatever. What we're dealing with in this faction are fascists, pure and simple. Just the faction. I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about this faction, right-wing militias and neo-Nazi extremist groups that have been plotting this for a long time. It appears that it's been organized. What is fascism or neo-Nazis? New Nazis, right? It's a political philosophy or movement or regime that exalts nationalism and race above the individual and stands for centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader with severe economic and social regimen and forcible suppression of opposition. The kinds of things we saw in Germany in 1932 to 1945, and in Italy, where this concept was developed by Benito Mussolini, whose thugs attacked public buildings. He got control of the government and established himself as dictator. And this guy right here, Adolf Hitler, borrowed his philosophy. When we see this flag here, when we see Camp Auschwitz, when we see 6 MME, we know who these people are now. This faction. The Proud Boys is a far-right neo-fascist male-only or political organization that promotes and engages in political violence in the United States and Canada. The Proud Boys. They came up in the debate between Biden and the president. We'll play that. You're going to have to hear that now. A neo-Nazi fraternal organization, Proud Boys, and other alt-right, alternative right-wing groups use this as their symbol, where 6 million was not enough. What are they talking about? Adolf Hitler killed 6 million Jews in death camps, and they're saying that was not enough. These people hate a lot of people. They hate people who doesn't have the same color of skin that they have. Certain religious groups, and they also hate Jews, which is a religious group. When they talk about Camp Auschwitz, somebody whose family lived through this was a former governor of California, now famous actor too, named Arnold Schwarzenegger. He gave a speech about this that was really unbelievable. He's from Austria, and Austria was the first country taken over by Adolf Hitler. Hitler himself was born in Austria. And if we have time, I want to play this whole thing. At least we'll play the start of it.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans and to our friends around the world about the events of recent. So being from Europe, I have seen firsthand how things can spin out of control. I know there is a fear in this country and all over the world that something like this could happen right here. Now, I do not believe it is, but I do believe that we must be aware of the dire consequences of selfishness and cynicism. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. He sought a coup by misleading people with lies. My father and our neighbors were misled also with lies, and I know where such lies lead. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. But what are we to make of those elected officials who have enabled his lies and his treachery? I will remind them of what Teddy Roosevelt said. Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. A number of members of my own party, because of their own spinelessness, would never see their names in such a book, I guarantee you.
There's more to that, but it was a powerful statement over the weekend of a former governor of California, famous for his acting roles and whatever, who, because of his coming from Austria, which was annexed by Germany and Adolf Hitler, where Hitler was born, had a very different take about these Proud Boys. All right, now, the reason Joe Biden got into the election in the first place was because of this. And this happened in the first year of the campaign. And we don't have time to go any further into this, but I'm just telling you, this was the most consequential election of my lifetime. What do we think about those that enabled Trump's lies on this election and brought this country to this position? Well, we're going to find out, because they're going to be asked to vote on the 25th Amendment today. And it's going to be very interesting to see how people vote. And then tomorrow, they'll have to vote on impeachment in the House. And eventually, who knows how long it'll take, Nancy Pelosi will take that impeachment to the Senate, and the Senate will have a trial, and it'll be very interesting to see how they vote. And we, as a people, want to know how our elected officials stand, so we can decide what to do in the future in the next election, which, by the way, comes up in 2 years. That's what I love about the Constitution, love about this country, is every 2 years, we get to kind of decide if we like the way things are going or not. There'll be congressional elections in 2 years and another presidential election in 4. So let's see where we go from here. All right, that looks like it's it, guys. We'll see you in 2 days. Watch for the update coming tomorrow morning on what's happened, and it won't be very long. It'll be about another 10 minutes, but I want you to listen to that before you take on the study guide, which will be ready tomorrow night.